Vladimir Putin knows that Donald Trump is the one who calls the shots. He is. He could have been way more aggressive towards Vladimir Putin if he wanted to. If I was president of the United States and Russia was supplying Iran with weapons to kill U.S. soldiers, I would kill Vladimir Putin.
My name is Jimmy Rushton, and I'm a special correspondent at the Kyiv Independent. I'm recording this after our interview with Laura Loomer in Kyiv. Loomer is a controversial but prominent figure in US conservative politics, and someone President Donald Trump himself is known to pay close attention to. She has previously written for Russian state media, spread Russian narratives about Ukraine and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and heavily opposed all US aid to Ukraine. She now herself admits that she, like many others on the conservative right, was duped by Russian propaganda. After spending a week in Ukraine, she is now advocating for military aid to Kyiv and for tougher sanctions on Russia. She also suggested that President Trump himself visit Kyiv. We believe this radical shift is newsworthy and it warrants further scrutiny. As such, when we were offered an interview, without preconditions or advance sight of any questions, we believed it was in the public interest to conduct it. If you believe independent journalism from wartime Ukraine matters, you can support the Kyiv Independent by joining our community for the price of a cup of coffee. We are an audience-funded media outlet, and we can only continue this work thanks to viewers like you. Join us by following the link in the description below. You've been in Ukraine for a little over a week now. You experienced your first ballistic missile attack a couple of nights ago, and you've just gotten back from Kyiv. So can you tell me how your impressions have changed of this country since you've arrived?
I've been very honest from the beginning. I was always very anti-Ukraine. I was against sending U.S. tax dollars to Ukraine. Ukraine, for some reason, became a very polarized political issue. Usually, warfare or foreign policy isn't necessarily polarized. It's a national issue. But for some reason, we've seen that the issue of Ukraine kind of got attached to the Democrats, and it became this Democrat Party talking point, the Democrats and rhinos. And so, I'm obviously a MAGA conservative Republican, and it was very unpopular for MAGA conservative Republicans to support Ukraine. It didn't really leave a good taste in people's mouth with regards to Ukraine after the first impeachment hearing of President Donald Trump, where they tried to impeach him over a phone call with Zelensky, talking about allegedly Joe Biden, and the way that the Democrats branded this was, and the way they described it in the media was, Donald Trump is trying to pressure the Ukrainian government into investigating Hunter Biden so that we could get dirt on Joe Biden for the election. Completely made the story up. As Donald Trump says, it was a perfectly good phone call, and then he was acquitted. He wasn't found guilty. And so people watched that, and they kind of attached Ukraine to the Democrats, and they thought that Ukraine was used as a slush fund, kind of like a piggy bank for the Democrat Party. People started to view Ukraine as the place where billions of our taxpayer dollars were sent. And then this theory, whether it's a conspiracy theory or not, spread very rapidly in the United States, that the way that the Democrats were getting elected was that the billions of dollars of taxpayer money was being sent to Ukraine, and then it was being sent back to the United States to support the campaigns of Democrat politicians. I'm sure you've heard this before.
A lot of what you're saying, you've admitted, has been at least propagated by Russian.
Yes.
The Russian government, RT, various covert influence campaigns in the US, for example, Tenet Media, which paid a lot of conservative influencers.
Yeah, conservative influencers, $10 million. I mean, I know a lot of the people that were paid the money.
Exactly. So do you think your kind of mea culpa, your change of heart, because you believe some, pretty strange things about Ukraine in the past, right?
Yeah, I thought your president was a fake Jew, right? I said, oh my God, how can any Jew support Nazis? And obviously I'm Jewish. And I bought this in Ukraine. So it's proof that it's not a country full of Nazis. A really nice Ukrainian Orthodox woman sold it to me outside the church around the corner. So this is, I guess, my living proof that it's not a country run by Nazis, because I bought a Magen David here. So, but I really did believe these things. And looking back, I really probably should have had some better judgment. But, people have to understand the political dynamic in the United States, because some people may think, well, this doesn't make any sense at all. I have no idea how she could believe these things. This just sounds ridiculous. She's making it up. There was some Kremlin propagandist who pretends to be Ukrainian, who is on social media, who spread a conspiracy theory saying that I was paid $2 million by the Ukrainian, I'm sure you've seen it, $2 million by the Ukrainian government. And then your Center for Disinformation that I visited told me that they've identified this individual as somebody who's actually paid by the Kremlin. And so the Russians are very good at pushing out conspiracy theories, pushing out propaganda. And there's already people now in America that are commenting under my posts, oh, you're a sellout, I'm unfollowing you because you're paid $2 million by the Ukrainian government. I was not paid by anybody to come here.
You were at the McDonald's in Lukyanivka, which is, been heavily bombed. That area has been absolutely smashed by Russian ballistic missiles. The only defense that Ukraine has against those ballistic missiles are American-made PAC-3 Patriots. And I saw on X that you were advocating for more Patriot PAC-3s to be sent to Ukraine. And that's a massive change from where you were before. And would you support President Trump bringing a new supplemental aid bill to supply Ukraine with these weapons that they desperately need to protect this city?
So here's a problem, right? So there's a difference between what we would like and what's realistic. Now, one of the reasons why the Ukraine issue became such a heated political topic in the United States is because during the Biden presidency, he allowed our country to be invaded, right? We had 25 million illegal aliens who came into our country under Joe Biden. And as a result, right, of the Ukraine-Russia war, Joe Biden not only signed off on sending over, well, now it's at 200 billion, right? 200 billion US dollars in aid has been sent in support of the Ukraine war. But he also depleted our ammunition and our artillery and our Patriot missile supply. And he gave a lot of our weapons to Ukraine.
But a lot of that money was invested in U.S. defense concerns, right? To replace
I just want to explain where we are right now. So we gave a lot of our supply, our stock to the Ukrainians in support of them and their defense. Then now with Donald Trump back in office, we have the Iran war. And we have significantly depleted our Patriot missile supply. And as you know, you can't just pop these things out like babies, right? I mean, it takes twice the amount of time that it takes to conceive a human child it takes to make a Patriot missile. So it takes 18 months to make these missiles, and each one of them is $3.6 million. And so we have a shortage of these, and we have the Iran war right now, where we have Iranians firing missiles at U.S. air bases all throughout the Middle East. And then at the same time, right, we need to protect ourselves in the homeland. So America really doesn't have a massive supply of these missiles to be giving out. Now, in an ideal world, if we could pop these things out and it was unlimited and we could mass produce them on a daily basis, just like Ukraine is mass producing drones on a daily basis. I mean, from my understanding, you guys produced 8 million drones last year, and I was told you're on track to actually produce 15 million this year. It's just unbelievable, especially when you think of the fact that America is only producing 300,000 a year. We have a lot to learn from Ukraine when it comes to drone production, but you can't mass produce Patriot missiles. So do I think that Ukraine should get Patriot missiles? I do. But at the same time, we don't even have enough of these Patriot missiles to defend ourselves. But in an ideal world, if there was able to be a mass production of Patriot missiles and we had enough to protect ourselves, I would say, yeah, Ukraine should get Patriot missiles, because now your President Zelensky just announced this week that Ukrainian intelligence has uncovered the fact that Russia is providing satellite imagery to the Iranians to locate U.S. air bases and to kill U.S. soldiers and kill and attack U.S. Navy members, right, on these ships in the Strait of Hormuz, right, and the Caspian Sea. And so really, when you think about it, given the news reports this week that Ukraine, I guess they fired a drone at one of these Iranian ships that was carrying weapons from Russia.
On the Caspian Sea.
In the Caspian Sea, yeah. The Ukrainians are now helping us defeat Iran, even though your president said he doesn't really want to get dragged into the Iran war. So I'd say, isn't it a lot cheaper long term to make sure that Ukraine has these Patriot missiles so that they can defend themselves against this alliance? Because it's not just Russia, right? Iran is sending Shaheds to Russia, and they're using these against the Ukrainians. And then the Russians are sending explosives, and they're sending drone materials as well to Iran, and they're using those to attack our allies and also to attack Israel and attack the United States of America and like our service members. So we have to start thinking geopolitically long term. If Ukraine falls, well, what happens next? Russia has already said that their goal is to go to war with all of the NATO members. If they are successful in taking Ukraine, they are going to declare war on all of the NATO members and the surrounding, former Soviet Union states. Well, what is their ultimate goal, right? It's the destruction of the West. And what is the West? Well, it's civilized European countries that aren't included in Eastern Europe, and it's the United States of America.
And as you said, they're supplying satellite information to Iran, so Iran can more successfully target US troops in the Persian Gulf.
Well, it's a communist country. They like to pretend they're not communists. They're communists. They're communists in Russia. And people will say, well, you're trying to bring back Russia-phobia and you're trying to bring back this Cold War era, sentiment. This doesn't help. And then they send their representatives to, the United States Congress to try to invite members of Congress to go on delegations to Russia. But if you really want peace and you really want to be a partner with the United States of America, then why are you supporting the Iranians when they're threatening to assassinate Donald Trump? Why are you trying to help kill our soldiers? Why are you retweeting these stupid Lego videos on your RT, state-run media account? Everybody knows. Or maybe they don't know. I don't know. Maybe they don't know that Vladimir Putin directs all the content out of the Kremlin, and the Kremlin controls RT. People seem to think that this is like an independent media organization, but Vladimir Putin controls. Did you
know that? Did you know that when you wrote for RT? Because I know you
you've
read it now.
I thought that RT. I didn't realize that it was all controlled out of the Kremlin. I did not. Okay. I didn't. They had a studio in D.C. They had a studio. Sputnik had a studio. It was actually known as like the nicest TV station in Washington, D.C. It was the most high tech.
Because they've been quite good at laundering their propaganda, pretending to be independent and sometimes running stuff that's mildly critical of the Kremlin.
Well, and they hired all these Americans. So you would see all these former American people. Like, I think a former Fox News producer moved to Russia to go work for RT. They had a lot of people that moved overseas, and they had a lot of Americans, too, that were broadcasting out of their D.C. office. And then it wasn't until they got sanctioned and they closed down the RT office. But when I was, as a conservative, people have to understand, like, they say, oh, why are so many people on the conservative right pro-Russia? You have to understand the political dynamic in America. When Joe Biden, and in my opinion, stole the election, I'll say stole the election, but maybe some of your viewers aren't going to agree.
They might disagree with that.
They can disagree. I believe the election was stolen. I do. When Joe Biden stole the election, and even leading up to the election, we saw this. The big tech social media companies, they censored information. They censored the Democrats have themselves to blame for this. They said, Russia, 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 for 10 years. They made up a Russia collusion hoax to lie and say that Russia was working with Donald Trump as a secret agent to try to steal the election from Hillary Clinton. That was all fake. And then what they did is they covered up the Hunter Biden laptop and they said, oh, well, it's Russian disinformation, right? Because they wanted to just say, oh, they're blaming Russia, when really the president's son had all that information, or the guy who was running to be president had all that information on his laptop. Why do I bring this up? Because you want to know why so many Americans fell for Russian propaganda? Well, they banned all of us. All the big tech social media companies silenced us and they kicked us off, and the only place where we could go was Telegram. That was the only place that we could go. We got banned on Facebook. We got banned on Twitter. We got banned on Instagram. I was banned everywhere. I mean, I wrote an entire book called How I Became the Most Banned Woman in the World. So the censorship complex in the United States and the way that big tech censored political voices and deplatformed Donald Trump had a lot to do with why so many people on the right gravitated towards Russia. After Donald Trump got deplatformed, Vladimir Putin, I remember, gave an address. He gave an address. I don't know if you remember.
I don't, actually, but I'm sure you're...
He gave an address, and he said, oh, well, America loves to say that they're a civilized country, but what kind of civilized country bans the leader of the free world, the president of the United States? And he said in this video, you could probably go back and find it, he's like, in Russia, we would ban Facebook and Twitter before we allowed them to ban a president. And a lot of people felt, wow, I can't believe we've been told that Russia's so authoritarian and they don't have free speech in Russia, but they're standing up more for Donald Trump than some of our own American lawmakers.
The Russians are very good at exploiting these
emotions
and existing kind of grievances and fractures in Western societies.
And I've realized that. I realized that my rage was capitalized and manipulated. They approached me. RT tried to recruit me, and they did recruit me at my lowest hour. They approached me right after my congressional campaign when I was very emotional. I was deplatformed as a candidate, even on the ballot, despite winning my primary. They deplatformed me after I watched the Democrats steal the election from Donald Trump. And they said, oh, we would really love to give you a voice. And we find it to be so bad and so shameful that your own country is not standing up for you while you're being deplatformed and silenced.
And so essentially they recruited you, that's how you recruit an asset, right? So they approached you when you...
They approached me and they said they would give me a byline and they offered to pay me. I never took money, I swear to God. It wasn't even a lot of money. They offered me like $150 per article. I never took money. I remember I didn't want to take money because I thought, oh, this is probably not a good idea because, I only wrote about 5 or 6 op-eds. If they haven't deleted them, you could probably pull them up and see them. About big tech censorship, I think I even wrote one of the articles about Putin standing up for Donald Trump. But I never took the money because I thought, oh, after the Democrats pulled all their nonsense with Russiagate, the last thing I want is them accusing me of being some Russian agent, right? So I never sent an invoice. And even if I would have sent an invoice, it's under $1,000, we're not talking a lot of money. But all you have to do is take $1 and you find yourself in trouble and they could make up charges against you.
In regards to your relationship with Donald Trump, obviously you're pretty close friends with him. Have you got a meeting with him scheduled for when you're back in the US? And are you going to tell him about your trip? He's obviously been following you pretty closely. He retweeted your interview with Zelensky. And what are you going to be saying to him in regards to his policy towards Ukraine?
So I spoke to the president actually 2 days or so ago after I interviewed President Zelensky, and he told me that he liked President Zelensky very much, but he also told me that he likes Vladimir Putin. He does. He gets along with both. And so I don't want to speak for Donald Trump, but yeah, I do have plans to go and have a meeting with the president when I get back. It was scheduled prior to my trip to Ukraine. I do plan on sharing my experience with the president if he asks. The meeting was supposed to be about other things, but yeah, certainly. I would, if he asks about it, right? You get limited time. He's a very busy man, as you know. But I'm happy to share my experience. I'm not a lobbyist, so I can't lobby politicians. It's not like I'm going to the White House to go lobby for, Patriot missiles.
You're not a lobbyist, but you have very strong opinions and you're not scared to share them, right?
No, I'm not afraid to share my opinions, and I don't care. Look, if people want to accuse me of being paid, they call me Mossad, they say I'm an Israeli spy, they say I'm paid by Ukraine. I'm not paid by any of these countries.
The government didn't pay for your trip?
The government did not pay for my trip. Okay. They did not. They did not pay for my trip. So they did not, and I would take a lie detector test to prove that. I would sign an affidavit with a penalty of perjury in the United States. The Ukrainian government did not pay me. They did not sign an agreement with me, and I did not have any of my trip paid for by the Ukrainian government.
You can understand why some people might be slightly suspicious of your apparent change of heart, but at the same time...
But at the same time, I've been documenting the woke Reich, right? People want to say, what made you turn? When I started to see how these people, these woke Reich personalities and these podcasters in the United States, they built their careers off of Donald Trump. They were able to become multimillionaires off of the MAGA audience. And now these people are trashing the president every single day, making up lies about him, calling him a pedophile, saying that he's controlled by Israel, saying that he's an Israeli puppet. They say that he's old. There's so many lies about Donald Trump. And people like Tucker Carlson, or Tucker Carlson, as I call him, they spread these lies. And guess who's amplifying it? Guess who is obsessively clipping the lies of Tucker Carlson, the lies of Nick Fuentes, the lies of Candace Owens, the lies of that lunatic Jackson Hinkle, who should be arrested and have his passport confiscated as soon as he returns to the United States. That crazy guy, Scott Ritter, Glenn Greenwald, right? Max Blumenthal. There's so many of these people in the United States. And why is it that when I used to follow RT, they were like a legitimate news source, right? They would cover international news. They would get war correspondents. They covered everything. It seemed like they covered all stories from all around the world. But now when you watch RT on their social media page, if you pull it up, There's no more balanced news coverage. It's literally just a clip account of American podcasters who are pro-Russia, pro-Putin, anti-Trump, and pro-Holocaust denial, anti-Israel, and anti-Jewish, and pro-Islam.
But obviously RT gave that impression deliberately, right? Because they wanted to create the sense that they were fair and balanced.
Yeah,
so that
and I'm bamboozled. I'm here to admit that I got bamboozled. And it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. Really, I am embarrassed because it's embarrassing. Look, I know that like a lot of people don't want to ever admit they're wrong. And I always say, oh, I'm never wrong. My whole slogan is, oh, I'm always right. I'm always right. Right? Eventually people realize I'm always right. But I was wrong. I was wrong about RT. And I deeply regret writing articles for RT. And I deeply regret going on, I think I went on Ben Swan's podcast, and I think I actually said this. I think I actually said on his show, wow, why can't American media all be like RT and Russian media? It seems like you guys do a way better job. And I never should have said that because I realize now it was like a psychological operation. And they have a $1.8 billion budget. I thought it was $1 billion. And then when I started talking to FISU and I started talking to the Center for Disinformation, they told me the budget's actually $1.8 billion a year for propaganda and psychological operations on people. So, you know, I was wrong, and hopefully other people will realize that they're wrong as well. But I realize they're polluting the minds of Americans by serving as a rapid response team. And clearly they have a lot of funding behind this, because as a journalist myself and as somebody who runs media and has a production team, and I have, you know, a show that I do twice a week, and I have my own website, I know how much money it costs every single month to pay people to clip your clips. I know it's not cheap. And by the end of the year, it's like over $100,000, if not multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a media operation. And so if RT has, and that's just for me, right? That's for my show. That's not even including like all these other shows out there. So if you have staff, and I know that they're not paying people American salaries in Russia, but just think about this from a monetary perspective. And this is what really woke me up. If you have a full-time clip team 24/7 clipping the accounts of these podcasters, and then you're sharing this content everywhere, how much money are they paying to amplify these people? They're not even registering as lobbyists, or they're not even registering with FARA, because maybe they know, or maybe they don't know. Maybe these American podcasters are in touch with the Russian government. I mean, some of them are, right? Like Tucker and Candace, clearly, because they went to Russia. But maybe some of these podcasters don't even know, and they've just assigned somebody from RT to watch their show 24/7 and to clip it and to inflame social tensions. But it's very bizarre to me that they're so fixated on trying to create a political divide in the United States. And it's because they want to weaken our national security by making people not support Donald Trump, because they know that Donald Trump is the only person who can end this war between Russia and Ukraine.
Do you think that he can end this war within a reasonable time scale? Because obviously he said he was going to end it in 24 hours. That didn't happen. And he has been trying to end it.
He's been trying.
But he hasn't been successful so far. Do you think he should come to Kyiv? Do you think he should send
Jared? I think he should come. You know, I know that Steve and Jared have been, and I know both of them.
Why haven't they come to Kyiv?
I don't know. But I tweeted the other day that they should. When I was having a meeting with Ambassador Kitslitsa in his office at the presidential building, I noticed on his desk, and I tweeted this photo, he has a photo of, well, he has the actual copy of Jared Kushner's book. And I said, oh, Jared Kushner, did he bring you this book? He said, no, they haven't come to Kyiv.
But they visited Moscow multiple times.
They visited Moscow like 7 times. So I think absolutely, especially after this last week where Marco Rubio met with Lavrov in the Philippines, and he showed such disrespect towards the lives of American soldiers and was mocking the questions from American reporters when they asked him about why Russia is supplying Iran with weapons to kill soldiers. And he's like, oh, speak louder. Oh, get a better hairstyle. They should absolutely say fuck the Russians, and they should come to Kyiv. Because why would you even want to entertain something like that? They're killing our soldiers. So if I can come here and survive, you know, as an American citizen on my own, I had security, don't get me wrong. Why would Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff not come? They could have a U.S. delegation, U.S. Armed Services. They could have special forces from America come and escort them if they wanted to. I'm sure this is how it works all the time. I'm telling you, I survived. Look, I could get droned on the train tonight, I suppose, right? But I survived. And even with ballistic missiles being rained down on Kyiv, I survived. So, maybe they want to wait a little bit to send President Trump. I don't know. But I don't see why Jared Kushner or Steve Witkoff can't come and have a meeting here. They just had Whitaker, our ambassador for NATO. He was here. So if he could survive, he didn't get struck by a drone, he didn't get killed in a ballistic missile attack. Why can't they send Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff?
One thing you sent out on X was as a post saying that you didn't see any Muslims when you were in Ukraine. Do you think you might have seen them, but you just didn't notice? Because we have thousands of Muslims serving the Ukrainian armed forces here.
Well, I was told that you guys do have Muslims, but they must be assimilated then, because that's another thing that I find to be so impressive about Ukraine is that, look, I don't hate Muslim people, but you can't deny the fact that you're from the UK. I mean, you know what the #1 baby name is in the UK?
Mohammed.
Mohammed. Do you think that sounds like a British name?
I mean, I think that's for a specific reason that a lot of Muslims.
No, it's a yes or no question.
It's not a.
Is that a British name?
It's not a British name, but there's
is it
a specific.
Harry, Charles,
but
Elizabeth? My middle name is Elizabeth. I'm actually half English. My mother's
my name's
from
James, right? And there's lots of different variations of British names, but there's one very popular Muslim name, and I think that's why it's the most popular name in the UK, if that makes sense.
No, it's the most popular name in the UK because your country's been totally overrun by Muslims. You have a Muslim mayor in London, Sadiq Khan, and you have a jihadist.
You have Madami in the US,
and they need to denaturalize him. I did not want Mamdani. I'm very outspoken against Islam. I'm very anti-Islam. I personally don't believe Muslims should be allowed to hold office in the United States. It's not a religion in my eyes. It's a political ideology. I feel very strongly about this because if you look at the way Islam is practiced in other parts of the world, it's a legal code. And so, I know that Poland has really strict immigration as well. They don't have a Muslim problem. So maybe the Muslims that are coming into Ukraine or the Muslims who live here, they feel assimilated. Maybe they're not wearing the hijab, which is an outward symbol that you are Sharia adherent. So Kyiv, in that sense, should be, and Ukraine, Kyiv is a city, but Ukraine as a country should be applauded for preserving your majority as a white Christian European nation. Russia, on the other hand, I noticed one of the things they love to say is we're persecuted because we're white and we're Christian. Well, you're not really. Like you have more. I think it's like the fastest growing Islamization of any country in Europe, and so you have Vladimir Putin on video kissing a Quran with Kadyrov and telling Kadyrov that he needs to command his forces to invade Ukraine for the sake of carrying out a holy war, a jihad, in support of Russia and Vladimir Putin. So how are you preserving Christianity when you're aligning with, third world jihadist Muslims that are, savaging thousands of Ukrainians because not just because they're Ukrainian, but because it's a religious war for them, right? I think it's important to highlight that because Russia loves to say, oh, we're the same. You're not the same. You're not the same.
I mean, it's ironic because Russia heavily persecutes Crimean Tatars, right? But they're a Muslim minority in Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014.
They criminalize everybody that isn't part of the Russian Orthodox Church. I met with your rabbi, the chief rabbi here, Rabbi Osman. He told me that the KGB opened a file on him and investigated him. He said he was born in Russia and that they investigated him for being Jewish. We have so much anti-Semitism in America. And you know what I discovered here, speaking and just opening my eyes, getting on a plane for 12 hours and then taking a train for 15 hours and driving for 8 hours? I learned that anti-Semitism is illegal in Ukraine. Nazism is illegal in Ukraine. If you're caught with Third Reich or swastika or Nazi memorabilia or Nazi regalia, even for so-called historical purposes, you will go to jail. They give you a slap on the wrist one time, they put you in a database so they know that you're an offender, and then they jail you and they arrest you. We don't even have that in the United States. You're allowed to walk around with a swastika if you want in the United States because they say it's free speech.
Do you think that this fight that Ukraine is waging for its independence has a quite an American character? Because if you think about 1776, America was fighting us, the Brits, a big imperial power that we were determined to keep you under our yoke, and that's what Russia is essentially doing here. So do you think conservative Americans should really embrace this fight for independence by the Ukrainians? Because it seems very American to me.
Yeah, I think they should. And especially knowing what we know now, that Russia is trying to stop the U.S. from winning or at least ending our own war with the Iranians, supplying them with weapons, satellite imagery to murder U.S. Soldiers, attack our bases. Absolutely, because there's this phrase in the United States that the crocodile will eat you last. They eat you last until they eat you. They might eat you last, but they're still going to eat you. And it goes back to what I said in the beginning of our interview. Multipolarity is only spreading at a more rapid pace every single day. China, Russia, Iran. There was a report that Russia is now going to get 30,000 soldiers from North Korea. And there's a lot of politicians in the United States that are trying to hijack the MAGA movement because Donald Trump is only going to be president for 2 more years, right? Thank God that he is our president. Thank God. I wish we could have him longer than that. But there's going to be somebody else after. And there's this fight on the American right now to redefine what that is. And a lot of people want it to be isolationism. I do not want it to be isolationism because I personally believe that when you push isolationist policies, you give rise to multipolarity. But these are the people like Tucker Carlson, for example, who, and he has close relationships with people in our government. He's very good friends with our vice president, right? Tucker's son worked for the vice president, and I get along with Vice President J.D. Vance, but you cannot deny the fact that there are people who serve in the highest levels of the Trump administration who are isolationists, and that is only going to give rise to multipolarity. America doesn't need to be involved in every single war, but we do need to have our foot, or at least our pressure, applied to the entire world because we create a sense of balance. Otherwise, you have this axis of evil running around the world, wreaking havoc, killing everybody in sight because they're imperialist, right? They're imperialist in nature, and they say it themselves. They want to have greater Russia. Doesn't just end with Ukraine. It doesn't just end with Ukraine. They want a greater Russia. They want to have a complete Russian empire that encapsulates all of Europe. And then what's the rest of the West? What do they call it? They call it the Great Satan. And people are crazy if they think that they're never going to take a shot at the United States. It might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be 5 years from now. It might not even be 50 years from now. People only tend to think of how things affect them. People are really selfish, right? Like, oh, I'll be dead by then. I don't care. Oh, it doesn't impact me, right? I'm on this side of the world. I don't live in Ukraine. It doesn't matter. But someday it will. Someday it will affect our country, and it already is.
So one of your biggest takeaways from this trip will be that what happens in this country really does matter. Because a lot of people on the right didn't think that before.
Yeah, and we're not going to have Trump forever. Trump is the one that everyone's afraid of. Vladimir Putin is afraid of Donald Trump. He is. He can pretend like he's not. But Vladimir Putin knows that Donald Trump is the one who calls the shots. He is. He could have been way more aggressive towards Vladimir Putin if he wanted to, right? I don't think that, Do you
think he should be?
I mean, look, if I was president of the United States and Russia was supplying Iran with weapons, I would kill Vladimir Putin.
And he has the power to do that. Obviously,
but I mean, obviously, I don't speak for the president. I'm not saying Donald Trump should kill Vladimir Putin. I'm just saying, if I was president of the United States and I found out that another country was lying to my face and they were supplying a country that I was at war with, a country that is broadcasting 20 times a day on their national state television, kill Trump, death to America, death to Trump, I would find a way for that world leader to tragically pass away from a heart attack very unexpectedly. Sound familiar?
Thank you for watching. If you value independent reporting from Ukraine, subscribe to our channel for more. Interviews like this allow us to challenge influential figures directly and hold their claims to account. We can do that because we are independent, free from the influence of governments, oligarchs, and political interests. Help us keep it that way by becoming a member through the link below.